There's a certain kind of person who checks their bank balance before buying groceries. Even when they know they have enough, they check anyway. There's a person who feels guilty spending money on themselves, even after years of working hard, even after earning it. There's a person who stockpiles things, food, toiletries, spare everything, not because they need to, but because some part of them remembers when there wasn't enough, and that memory never fully leaves. If you grew up without money, you know exactly what this feels like, and if you didn't, you probably still know someone carrying these habits, someone whose relationship with money looks strange from the outside, but makes complete sense once you understand where it came from. This isn't just about poverty. This is about what scarcity does to a developing mind, and how those lessons follow people for the rest of their lives. Growing up without money doesn't just shape your childhood, it rewires your brain. The experiences you have before the age of 18 create psychological patterns so deep that decades of financial stability often cannot erase them. Researchers in developmental psychology call this the scarcity mindset, and once it forms, it changes almost everything: how you spend it, how you save, how you feel about your own worth, how you move through the world. Here is what most people don't understand. When you grow up in scarcity, your brain adapts. It has to. It becomes extremely good at one thing: detecting threats, noticing when resources are running low, anticipating loss before it happens. This is not anxiety. This is survival intelligence. Your mind learns in real time that things run out, that comfort is temporary, that stability cannot be assumed. Researchers at Princeton found that scarcity consumes what they call mental bandwidth. When your mind is constantly managing lack, there is less cognitive space left for everything else: planning, decision-making, long-term thinking. This is why people who grew up poor are often labeled impulsive or short-sighted. That label is completely wrong. They are not thinking short-term because they lack discipline. They are thinking short-term because their brain was trained in an environment where the long-term was never guaranteed. Think about someone like Daniel. He grew up in a household where the electricity got cut off twice a year, where school lunches were carefully calculated, where the treat at the end of the week was something most kids wouldn't even notice. Daniel is now 38. He runs his own business. He has savings. By every external measure, he is financially secure. But Daniel still eats everything on his plate, always. He still turns off every light when he leaves a room. He still feels a physical discomfort when he spends on anything that isn't strictly necessary. His wife doesn't fully understand it. His friends joke about it. But Daniel cannot explain it with logic, because it isn't logical. It is neurological. His brain built those habits during years when wasting anything had real consequences, and habits formed under that kind of pressure don't disappear when the pressure does. They calcify. They become the invisible architecture of how a person lives.
This is what growing up without money actually does. It doesn't just create memories. It creates a nervous system that stays permanently alert. There is also something called scarcity shame, and this is the part that people who grew up poor rarely talk about openly. It is not just the lack of money that leaves a mark. It is the awareness that others noticed. The secondhand clothes that weren't quite right, the birthday parties you couldn't attend because the gift would have been impossible, the school trips you sat out of, the quiet embarrassment that became a private language you learned to speak fluently and hide completely. Psychologists have found that shame experienced in childhood around social comparison becomes deeply embedded in self-worth. You can change your income and still feel like that kid, still feel like you don't quite belong in rooms where people spend casually and don't think twice, still feel a low hum of not enough underneath even the most successful exterior. This is not a weakness. This is the psychological residue of an experience that shaped you before you had the tools to process it. But here is where it gets more complicated. Not every psychological pattern formed in scarcity is a wound. Some of them are genuinely extraordinary strengths. People who grew up without money often develop a level of resourcefulness that those who had everything simply never needed to build. They know how to stretch things, how to solve problems with almost nothing, how to find value where others see none. They also tend to have a sharper relationship with gratitude, not the performed kind, the real kind, the kind that comes from knowing exactly what it feels like when something is missing. A warm meal means something different to someone who remembers when it wasn't guaranteed. Security means something different to someone who remembers when it wasn't there. These are not small things. These are profound emotional capacities that no amount of privilege can manufacture. Understanding the psychology of people who grew up without money ultimately reveals something about all human development. We are all shaped by our earliest environments. We all carry invisible blueprints drawn in childhood that influence how we behave as adults. The difference is that financial scarcity draws those blueprints in permanent ink. The lessons are urgent, the stakes are real, and the brain takes them seriously in a way it simply does not with abstract lessons learned in comfort. If you grew up poor and you still feel the ghost of it, you are not broken, you are not stuck. You are someone whose mind did exactly what it was supposed to do. It kept you safe. It learned the rules of your environment and followed them faithfully. The work now is not erasing what you learned. It is deciding which lessons still serve you and which ones you are safe to release. That is not easy work, but it is the most important financial work anyone from that background will ever do. And it starts with understanding that your relationship with money is not a character flaw. It is a story, one that began long before you had any say in it. The next time you notice yourself checking your balance when you know you're fine, feeling guilty for spending on something you earned, stockpiling things you don't need, or feeling out of place in a room where people spend without thinking, don't judge yourself. Recognize it. That habit has a history. That discomfort has a name, and understanding where it came from is the first step toward choosing something different. You grew up without money. That shaped you in ways both painful and powerful, but it does not have to define every financial decision for the rest of your life. If this resonated with you, leave a comment below. Did you grow up without money? How did it shape the way you handle finances today? Be honest. This is a safe space. I read every comment and reply to as many as I can. Also, make sure to subscribe. New videos every week on the psychology behind how people think and feel about money.